Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live episode of To the Moon, Allison, where we talk about the top and trending works in speculative fiction, fantasy, science fiction, and romance. I'm your host, Allison Martine Hubbard, author of the Bourbon Books and Works of Speculative Fiction. I am so excited to be joined today by the queen of cyberpunk, ANNA MOCIKAT. Anna, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. I've been so excited all week that I'm finally on the show. And yes, I am really honored that you invited me. That's so cool.
I'm so excited. So people who don't know, I'm sure plenty are watching us who actually know both Anna and I from our Twitter conversations and everything. So she's not a complete and total stranger, but this is the first we've actually gotten to talk almost face-to-face, sort of face-to-face.
Yeah.
And Anna has her behind blue eyes look going on with the beautiful blue eyes. I don't have blue contacts to be fancy, but I'm going cyborg today with my little plugins here. Somehow it does not let me connect to the internet directly. I was hoping that would happen, but it didn't. Eventually these should come off, I hope. But Anna,
what are you talking about? Those are not contact lenses.
You're like, I am naturally this gorgeous.
I actually have those eyes. I usually just wear contact lenses to hide them and pretend to be human. So
I know it's a cover story that we're working with you, and we will keep your secret because I'm sure there are going to be people who are like, how are you not just blowing through all of us or glitching in our reality? But my friend Abigail is like, how is it that these have still not come off? Because they hurt when I try to take them off. I got one off and then my shirt was sticking to it. It'll be off, I hope, by the end of the week. We'll see.
What are they? Are they?
So they were electrode leads. So for people who don't know, I was recently hospitalized twice, and then this is what they plug in the electrode leads because apparently I'm still a human and have a heart, and they want to make sure I'm like not having arrhythmias or anything like that. So they just plug them in, and everybody's going, shouldn't they have removed those when they dismissed you from the hospital? And I'm going, they just took a lot of blood and poked me a lot with needles and then sent me home with some drugs. So I don't really know what happened. All I know is I don't want to go back. So, maybe if I leave these on, they'll keep me from going back, like ward them off like vampires. But vampires. So there are vampires in some of your books, Anna, but let's kind of back up here and let people know. I refer to you as the queen of cyberpunk. You have earned that title, but you've done so through multiple different series like Behind Blue Eyes, The Cyber Squad, and Shadow City. Oh, and Terry is flattering us already. Terry says, hey, gorgeous people. Terry Gio, you are gorgeous as well. Thank you for joining us here.
Oh, Terry, what a surprise. I am so happy.
But Anna, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, including your beautiful accent, because you do not sound like the Californian I am. And I know that you've traveled around and have quite an extensive history, and you don't really sound like a Southerner, but I think that's where you are now.
Yes. So first of all, to the title, Queen of Cyberpunk, it might sound a little bit, high. I didn't give the title just to myself. I didn't.
No, I gave it to you.
So people on Twitter have given it to me like a year ago or something, and that's why I stuck with it.
All hail the queen.
just cyberpunk, only cyberpunk. So yeah, my wonderful accent obviously is not from the South. I live in South Carolina, and I've been living here for a couple of years, but obviously I'm not from here. No. I have done another thing. I have difficulties to blend in. I have to wear sunglasses to cover my eyes, and I have to shut my mouth so people don't realize I'm not from here.
You're not from around here. I can't do a Southern accent either, so I'm not even going to try. That was bad.
So I'm originally from Europe, and that's why I have this wonderful accent, which people usually can't really tell where it's coming from. And that's because I was born in Poland, and I spent a lot of time, many years in Germany. So my accent is a little bit of a mix of both. And so some people say I sound Eastern European, some people say I sound German. So yeah, that's how it is. I'm working on it. Maybe someday I will sound like a Southerner, but I'm not there yet.
Well, and you'll probably sound like a Southerner still with a little bit of a German accent by way of East Europe, because I know people who've traveled around, it's like the accents all just kind of become a blend and they become something distinct. So I think you'll have a distinct and beautiful accent. I love it because I love talking to people who have come through and like their voice is like a little passport of all the places they've lived. And it's really interesting because, I mean, when I start getting into my own accent, I just sound like a Valley girl, and that's just embarrassing. So like, I will not not do too many likes and but sometimes it just happens. I can't help it. So let's talk about a city that doesn't exist, at least not yet. Let's talk about Shadow City, because I'm not sure if I've got the timeline right, but did Shadow City, was this the first novel that you published in English? Because I know you've published books in other languages, which most of us can't read, but let's start with Shadow City, because that's the first one I would be able to read, and I've read that one.
Yes.
So tell us about that one.
So I published a couple of books in German, which you can't read.
I cannot read German. Very true. Cannot read German.
My English books are better than the German ones. So,
okay.
so you didn't miss out so much. I think, yeah, I had to come to the US and write in English to write the stuff I really wanted to write. And so yeah, Shadow City, my first book in English, is a little bit of a cyberpunk story, but also a post-apocalyptic story. I always compare it. I would say it's a Shadowrun meets Fallout series. I'm a big fan of those games. I'm a big gamer anyway. So, and it is set in a city you probably know very well since you're from California.
I was going to ask, it's set in basically a rundown version of Los Angeles, and I recognize so many of these places. Have you actually been here, Anna, or were you just researching all that? Because you nailed it, and I'm going, how does she know all this?
No, I actually lived there for a couple of months.
Okay, that's why.
Long time ago. That was when I was still a student at film school.
Oh, we lost Anna for a second. There we go. So you were a student at film school. So you were out here. That makes sense to be in Los Angeles for film school. So yeah. Shadow City.
I went in film school to Germany, but I spent a couple of months in LA and took classes and that kind of stuff. And back then already I was really fascinated by the city, and I always wanted to tell a story in LA, but in a post-apocalyptic LA. For some reason, that was like, for me, the place which would look really cool, post-apocalyptic. And what I always like doing in my books is I like to use real places and describe them, so people who actually know them will recognize them. And I really like to use places where I have actually been or lived. That makes it easier for me to write. So my stories are all science fiction, but they're mostly grounded in places that I actually know.
Well, you did a very good job of destroying Los Angeles. I'll just say that much. And I'm down in Orange County. So for people like, Allison, you don't live in Los Angeles. I'm there enough to know what it looks like. And before my sister and brother-in-law moved to Texas, my brother-in-law used to live right on the street where if you looked up, you'd see the Hollywood sign, which you also decimated, which I'm like, it kind of had it coming at this point, because the number of people who would literally just stop in the street, get out and take pictures, like on a street, going, guys, you can't just stop in the middle of the street and do selfies just because the Hollywood sign is back there. But that's what happens if you lived on Beechwood. There you go. But you did a great job, not just with the setting, but even things like music from time gone by. So there were a lot of references to that. And I appreciated how you worked all of that in. But there's one more thing. So I would say there was one more comp there, because there are vampires in your post-apocalyptic world. So that was a different take on an apocalypse that I hadn't seen before, because usually when you get apocalypse, you don't necessarily blend in that supernatural element. So what was behind the choice to do that? Because it's not so much in, say, your Cyber Squad series or your Behind Blue Eyes series. Why the vampires?
So they are not really supernatural in Shadow City. They are more like a race that is different from humans. And oh, thank you, Derek. Oh, thank you, you're a sweetheart, and thank you for being here. That's awesome. They are a little bit different than I created practically a new lore for them, and I had the idea a long time ago of the apocalypse and what would happen to vampires if humans would die out. They would die because they starve.
Because we're the food. We're their food. They can't get by without us.
So that was basically the main idea behind the whole story, was actually this thing that, so we have the apocalypse, there are only a couple of humans left, and the vampires who have always been there and always lived in the shadows and never wanted to have much to do with their food, they suddenly realize, oh shit, if they die, we will starve. So they come out into the open and make a deal with the humans, and say, we protect you, but in return you will go to the blood bank once a month. And the blood banks that's a part of the lore also, invented by vampires actually.
And I love that. And okay, so from being recently hospitalized, somebody came into my room around 2 a.m., 2 a.m. blood draw, and I just like flopped my arm out. But I was totally thinking of your book going, yeah, I'm sure this guy's really a vampire, and I know where this is going. You aren't running any more talk screens. You guys are just hungry. And Abby says, it reminds me of the film Daybreakers. It sounds great. Abby, you would love this. And I so loved all the lore you created, everything from working in vampire mythology and how it was created by the vampires to kind of steer people away from the truth. And I love that because I've read enough vampire books that to see a completely new take on it and how you broke the vampires into the world in a way that felt so realistic. I love that because you're right. It didn't really feel supernatural. It's just like, yep, this is another part of the food chain. And when that food chain breaks down, everybody fails. So how are we going to come to this really weird alliance? And I just love that because I've never experienced something like that. And then with the dystopian setting, all of that was really amazing. But all of your books are kind of set in the future, but not all of them are necessarily as bleak. So I kind of want to bring Cyber Squad and Behind Blue Eyes together because they do fit together, because I read Behind Blue Eyes first. So that was the first work of yours I read, and I loved that. And then when I read Cyber Squad, I was so excited because hi, you have the Easter egg of Behind Blue Eyes is a video game in the Cyber Squad. So did those ideas come together for you, or how did you work those together for us?
So actually all my stories are basically, it's like a multiverse. So they're all connected with Shadow City is also connected to Behind Blue Eyes, which we will know in book 4, but it's only a very, very small Easter egg for really people who go deeply inside. They will know it has something to do with each other. But so I had the idea to Cyber Squad many years ago, over 10 years ago, when I worked in the video game industry. And I had this idea of the game testers who go and set the games and rescue people, because gaming. Oh yeah, Terry. I know.
Huge Behind Blue Eyes fan. I always have to read the comments in because some people will hear this just as audio. So when we react and they're like, "What are you guys talking about?" We're talking about Terry Geo, who is a big Behind Blue Eyes fan. A lot of us turned our eyes blue on Twitter.
Who's also an awesome author himself.
Yeah, he's
also a sci-fi author, and he's
also refraction, and has just been hitting the fringe scene. So check out Terry Geo and get all of his work.
Yeah, he has a wonderful live show he had this summer. So yeah, and I when I created this whole game world, so basically I wrote Behind Blue Eyes first, and there, if you remember, the guy Finwick, he's playing a game called Tesota, and he's playing the same game Kai is playing in Behind Blue Eyes. It's the same game, just a little bit different. And then Behind Blue Eyes is a game they actually test in this universe. So it's like fiction in their universe and very real there, but it's connected like that. And that was an idea I had pretty early on. And it's really just a very tiny detail. And I love it when people see it, because
we get excited.
Yeah, I put those little details into for people who really read closely and pay attention to details. And I know that they are happy about it, and then I'm happy too. So yeah.
I love how you do all that, because Cyber Squad is a very grounded kind of place and not too distant from our future. And I think the closest comp, which everybody's going to know, is the Ready Player One stuff. But while Ready Player One is just kind of an indulgent thing about nostalgia and doesn't really get into the gaming aspect of it, the fact that you're a video game designer totally makes sense when you read all of the Cyber Squad stuff, because it is the most realistic stuff that I've ever read, which is why you have earned the Cyberpunk Queen title, because it is realistic and it does feel really grounded. And yes, it's futuristic, but just enough that we can see where our technology is now. And it's not a huge leap to get there. So you're not going, well, yeah, but this could never happen. What's scary is all of it could, which brings us, Dean Robb wants to know, what got you into cyberpunk?
That was many years ago.
No, Anna froze again. Try again, Anna. So many years ago, what got you into
I'm sorry. My internet connection is flaky. Of course,
we've got weather going on.
Today of all days, right? Okay.
So that's what happens when we go live.
many years ago, I watched Ghost in a Shell, and that was for me like I was completely blown away by this movie. I knew Blade Runner before that, and back then when I saw it, I wasn't a big fan. I had to watch it again to like it, and I'm also, and I almost don't dare to say it, I'm not a big fan of William Gibson.
You're allowed to say that.
It's a little bit like heresy to say it, but
Yeah.
it's just true. I'm just not a big fan. But I'm a incredible fan of Ghost in a Shell, which is like the biggest inspiration for my work. This, and before that, even before that, in the 90s, Cyber Squad is scarier. Yeah, it is closer. It is closer, and it is also
because
not
Terry says,
such, yeah.
Yeah, because Terry says, I find Cyber Squad a scarier prospect than Behind Blue Eyes because it is so relatable to now. And you're completely right, Terry. That's the thing. It's like, yeah, it's not set right now, but it's not set too far in the distance. And for people who haven't read it yet, the reason Cyber Squad exists is to take care of the virtual reality world. And it's set in a world that has kind of fallen on the wayside, and people are escaping to like the virtual reality because reality is just kind of crap. So everybody's going there, but we find that there are dangers there. So it's one of those things where I think most of us go, that's close enough to right now where the world is falling apart that it's really terrifying. Like, Anna, you're giving me nightmares.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I am the world I describe in Cyber Squad is pretty much what I think that the world will look like in a couple of years, like maybe in 20 years or something. So it's really not far away, and I'm afraid that we're actually really going there, and there's many things that point in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe that as the crappier our world gets, and it's unfortunately it can happen that it will get really crappy, like with mass unemployment and so on, with the whole automatization with AI and robots doing all jobs, so people don't have jobs anymore. And then to keep people docile, they put them in VR. So I mean, they don't put them in VR, but there is nothing else left to do. So people are hang out in VR, and we already see the metaverse and others who are working on that. And I think VR will be really, really big in the future. And of course, is more science fiction because they actually lock themselves in, like in the Matrix. They connect their brains directly to VR, which makes the experience like 100% realistic. And that's why it's dangerous, because the brain can be tricked into believing it's real. And then when something horrible happens to you, you might get a stroke or something like that. So
yeah, because like right now, VR, my husband's on his sometimes, and I've played Beat Saber, but it's nothing's plugging into you, so there's that safety net. But the more realistic you get, the more, if you're exposing yourself to it, then what's coming back, and what kind of physical issue could you have if you're plugged in and something goes wrong?
Yes, exactly. So that's the idea behind it. But still, I think that Cyber Squad is more a fun story than Behind Blue Eyes. I mean, the people there and how they interact and the whole gaming world. It's very colorful, and there is a lot of lightheartedness there, even though it's a serious world outside. But the story itself is serious too. But it's more a fun story than Behind Blue Eyes. I mean, Behind Blue Eyes is fun too, but this is a more serious story. No,
definitely the tone is different, and I love the camaraderie you have, because your main character Kai is part of this Cyber Squad team, and there's some other people who aren't part of his team that he interacts with a lot too. But you've built such a core that even when they're just hanging out at the pool, I feel like I'm there with them, and I'm like, I want to go push Marco in the pool because he's being an idiot. That's kind of how realistic you write it, and I love that. But Behind Blue Eyes, here you've got androids like yourself. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know Dean is asking about why you started writing books when you come out of a TV and game writing background.
I always wanted to write books, actually. So that was like my first thing I wanted to do, and I kind of got distracted by different stuff. So I actually started my career in journalism, and I didn't like it very much. Because I very quickly realized if they want me to invent stuff, I go into fiction, because
they're like, don't do that. You're a journalist, Anna. You have to kind of keep with the truth. You're like, I don't want to.
Yeah, no, I actually, yeah, I rather, if I had to invent stuff, I rather did it in fiction than in real. So that was like my very first experience with the professional world was this, and I was really young then, and enthusiastic, and I was like pretty much of a downer for me. And then I was accepted to film school, and went to film school, and was around the movie industry for a couple of years, which was really fun. But and I also earned really good money. But it also drains the soul in a way. And I still always wanted to do the book thing, and somehow never had the courage, funny enough, to write a book. And then I worked in the video game industry for a little while, so that's where Cyber Squad is coming from. And then finally, I decided to make this childhood dream come true, and write a book. And that was back in Germany. And then I got a book deal with a big publisher, and that's when it all started. And now I'm self-published, and I prefer that to being with a publisher. But that's a different story, maybe.
We can talk about that too, but I think it's amazing that you went through this career path and still going back to that childhood dream, because I think a lot of us, our career path takes us away, but then we can kind of pull those things into our stories. So it's like a diversion, but you're kind of picking up stuff and putting it in your backpack and then shoving them in the stories. So it kind of builds everything. So I love that you use all that, because I totally can see all these as films. So I would always lobby anybody watching this who has any film rights. We would love to see these on the big screen, because now the special effects can probably keep up with the things that Anna writes, because first off, we need authentic looking behind blue eyes. And who are we casting as Nephilim, assuming that you don't want to star in your own books?
I certainly don't.
I'm not saying you have a beautiful German accent, but if you would like to have maybe a famous celebrity, who in your brain looks like Nephilim or could pull off the Nephilim role? Who is our lead in the Behind Blue Eyes series?
Well, for Nephilim, it's a little bit difficult, because she's half Japanese, so she would have to have a very specific look. I have a very yeah, I know, Derry.
Terry also has a theater background, and a lot of us who end up in writing don't start there. And I think sometimes that really helps, because we're bringing all of that in. And like my book sister, she comes out of a background of theater, art, and even professional dance, and all of that works in. So I think the more we can bring in, the more rich stories we can tell. So
absolutely, I absolutely agree. Absolutely, that's 100%. So for Nephilim, it would be difficult for me, because I would probably try to cast a young newcomer actress that has a very strong physical presence, because she is. I wouldn't want someone like I mean, she wouldn't fit anyway, but someone like Natalie Portman, as much as I love her as an actress, but she is like so tiny, and
well, first off, she's not half Japanese, so we want.
No, I'm just talking about the physique. You know, a lot of actresses are really tiny and skinny, and so I would rather see someone who's really tall and athletic, because that's how they look like. You know, they are designed like that. The arms and legs, they're artificial, and they're of course not skinny. They have a lot of tech in there, and also everything else. They're really very athletic figures.
Yeah, because I like one of the ones I'm thinking. I'm like I'm trying to picture some of the people, and that is part of the problem, because most actresses are kind of more petite, because that's usually what Hollywood goes towards. So if you want someone with that bigger physical presence, and you don't want to have to go the She-Hulk route, which I understand why they had to do that, where you take a normal actress and you're making her bigger and stuff. You want someone who actually is bigger like that. The only person that's coming to my mind that I think could probably pull it off. Do you know who Dyken Lockman is? Does that name mean anything to you? So I first saw her in Dollhouse, but she's been on a lot of different stuff, and I know she has.
Yes. I know her.
And she's often blonde, but that means I think she could probably also pull the blue eyes, but I think she's got the physicality. She's not huge, but she's, I think, a little bit bigger. She's bigger than Natalie Portman, because I think I'm bigger than Natalie Portman, and I'm only 5'2", but she's really tiny.
I would rather. Did I freeze again?
You did for half a second. Go for it.
So for Nephilim, I would probably cast like a newcomer who has a physical presence, and is also very beautiful, because she is really, really pretty. So everybody says that, and so you would have to have someone who you look at her and know that's really a very beautiful woman. So for her, yeah. But I would definitely cast Ryan Gosling for Jake. That for sure.
Ryan Gosling is like,
Yes.
yeah, he'll just scoot over from the Blade Runner movies and be like, yeah, no, I'm just wandering through all the cyberpunk stuff. I think he's ready for it. He's already mentally prepared. Hala Williams says she needs a statuesque actor for Tyrell in the Wild Gods Gambit. That Hala, that's your book, I believe. And yeah, sometimes it's really hard when we go, I've created this imaginary person and now I need to go find an actor who actually fits this crazy thing I came up with. Hollywood's got to deliver. So I just looked at Disney Channel for whoever's going to be in things next, because they all grow up and then end up being big actors. Like there was a kid who was on some shows in Disney Channel and now he's been in the Elvis movie. And in my head, he's still like 12 and a half. So I'm a little uncomfortable with it, but it's okay. They grow up eventually. It's fine. But yeah, it's hard sometimes when we have things, but okay. Abby is agreeing that she wants Ryan. Abby, you can't have Ryan Gosling in everything. He can only be in so many things before he gets tired. We can give other.
In this case, I also would have them write in the contract that I have the right to visit the set. Time.
Are we talking conjugal visits
there
here?
Are a lot of scenes where this guy he would play is naked. So yes, I definitely would want to visit the set. Yes. That would be in my contract.
You're like, yes. I need to make sure that my books are being conveyed accurately. So I need to be on set, maybe about 5 feet away, maybe 2. Mm-hmm. Maybe just right.
Yeah, that's. I even will shut up. I won't talk anything. I won't tell you what to do. I just need to be there. That's definitely something I put in the contract.
You just read that in. Like, with I will Ryan Gosling. Rights. You guys have rights to do what you want, but I just need to sit right here.
Yeah, I will just sit there and drink coffee. I won't disturb anyone.
Yeah, not just sip your coffee. It's all good. It's all good.
So yeah, so this is him, and probably I would for Metatron I would probably cast. Oh my God, now Adam Driver is the name. Yes, I would.
Okay, well, Adam Driver can be in everything. That's absolutely fine. I did not picture him as that, but I like him in all of his varieties and as few clothing items as sometimes necessary. Can I come on set too? Just kidding. It's fine. It's fine. But we wanted to know, as far as Behind Blue Eyes, since this is kind of like your keystone piece in this world here, what about that world? Like, what do you have in common with Nephilim and some of her character arc?
So I have a lot in common with Nephilim. Obviously, I'm yes, I have I have cyborg eyes. Obviously, I'm not as cool and athletic and pretty as she is, but we have.
Well, you're just as pretty and cool. But last we checked, you probably do have like a pulse and not all cybernetic parts.
Oh, she has a pulse. She has. Okay, I mean, she is still 40% human, so she has
40%.
She has a lot. She still has a lot of human parts. They leave a couple of parts intact. So. And the thing is, the thought behind is that they leave them human parts because they function better, because the human brain needs to have something to relate to. So you can't just put the human brain into a robot body because the brain will go insane. It was for most people. That's in my world. That's what I thought it would be. So they leave some human parts so they can still eat and sleep and have sex and the most important human things. And that's why they function better.
Well, and that's amazing because I think we've all seen different things with cyborgs and the whole idea of, okay, well, what is that relationship and where's that line between humanity and a bionic person? And sometimes we just assume, well, if it's bionic, then they're no longer human, something like in the Battlestar Galactica, when you get the cyborgs who are the Cylons and they're not human at all, even if they look that way. I love that 40% line. And of course, now I'm also wondering in the Teen Titans what the line is with Cyborg, because he still wants his cheeseburgers. So we know his stomach is still like human because he always wants his cheeseburgers, but Nephilim's probably not quite driven by cheeseburgers the way a cartoon guy might be. But
they don't need to eat much because they only have 40% human tissue, so they only eat once a day, and they can also be they cannot eat for many days. So in general, I am like, when I write, I am a very huge nerd and geek when it comes to sci-fi. So I spend a lot of time thinking about such stuff. So with the cyborgs in Behind Blue Eyes, I spent like really months designing them and wondering how they will function, what parts they have, and so on. And if you read the prequels, which I just I published the first one, and the second one will be actually out tomorrow. There it's all explained how they work and where the energy source is coming from, and that they don't need to eat so much because they don't need so much calories, and that their heart is slower, and that they don't sweat, and why they don't sweat, and so on and so on. So everything is really explained because I thought of every single detail, because I just like doing that when I write science fiction. But they're still human and behave very human in many things. And so Nephilim and I have in common that I think we're both very stubborn, and we are both very loyal. And yeah, thank you, Terry. Yes, me too.
Terry's waiting for the second novella, and I was just gonna hop in and ask. So tell us the name of the first prequel and the one that's coming out tomorrow. What's that one called?
So both are called Nephilim. All three prequels are called Nephilim, volume 1, 2, and 3. You can start, they are novellas. You can start with them. If you never read anything of Behind Blue Eyes, it's possible to just start with the novellas, or you can start with the main series. And just check it out.
Like, start where you want. And I love that when you have like multiple entry points, because sometimes you're like, I don't want to read a whole novel right now. Novellas are lovely bite-sized ways to kind of feel out the world and decide if it's for you or not. And I haven't gotten to read the novellas yet, because as we mentioned before, you have so many different series. I've read most of Cyber Squad. I'm caught up on Cyber Squad, but I've read Shadow City and Behind Blue Eyes, but I'm behind in the Behind Blue Eyes series. And I'm like deciding between, do I go to the prequel next, or do I go to the next book in the story? I don't even know. I might just flip a coin.
I am grateful that you read so many books by me. Seriously, that makes me extremely happy, and that you enjoyed them is just wonderful. But you only read Behind Blue Eyes 1, I think, right?
Yeah, I've only read Behind Blue Eyes 1.
Oh yeah, you haven't even seen the good parts yet, actually.
There were good parts in the first one. I mean, some of the world building you do in all of these, like, I think it's just amazing because you have 3 different series and 3 different worlds, and yes, they're interconnected in the ANNA MOCIKAT universe, but they are each very distinctive, because some of the places that you describe in the Behind Blue Eyes series, some of them were just so beautiful. I'm like, there was an abandoned aquarium. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way you were describing it, it was just amazing. And I mean, I have a soft spot for aquariums. I actually have an abandoned aquarium in one of my books, but in a very different way. But I just love how that was taken over, and the idea of, like, well, in the future, where are things like this headed, and because in that world, it's like kind of more corporate run, and you've got these archangels who are doing things and running around, and it's just kind of this insane world. Yeah, I can't wait to get deeper into it. But I don't know if, like, am I going backwards to see where Nephilim came from, or going deeper in the story that way to see how she's dealing with Metatron and the other archangels?
Yeah, so the whole Nephilim Metatron story is turning really interesting with book 2.
Okay, Terry says 3 is his favorite. Okay, Terry, I will listen to you. I'll go forward instead of backwards, and then I'll loop back around.
Okay, aquarium really exists, Allison. So that's again something like we talked before about Los Angeles. So Behind Blue Eyes is set in a futuristic version of Atlanta, because that's where I live now, right? I live close to Atlanta, so I picked it as the city where it's set. And there is not much left of it, because they have flattened most parts and have built Olympia's City 1, but there are still small parts left. And so Old Town is what is downtown Atlanta now is Old Town in Olympia's. And so there are still parts existing, and one of those is the aquarium. The aquarium is the Georgia Aquarium, and it's absolutely beautiful, and it has those long tubes where you can walk through, and sharks will swim around you, and so on, and that's really cool. And I brought this aquarium. It actually also appears in Cyber Squad. I don't know if you noticed that, because
I did, because is that where the mermaids were?
No, the mermaids. That's a different thing. No, they're
one. Okay, then maybe it was when it was
in the second book. They test a level. Kai and Josh test a level, and they walk through the aquarium, and they even walk through the tunnel and everything. And so they are playing the angels who attack the rebels in
oh, nice. That's
playing,
okay.
They're playing this from the other side, and so they are walking through this aquarium and then attack those people who are hidden in this in this
who are
cave.
using that as their base. Yeah, no,
Yes.
I remember that from Behind Blue Eyes. I don't remember that from Cyber Squad 2, but then again, Cyber Squad 3, there is a club that certain people visit. I won't say who, but Kai is one of them, where there are like mermaids swimming around. So I was wondering if that was set in the same place, but apparently that's another aquatic thing, different aquatic.
No, obviously I really like aquariums too. And I have a fish. I have a betta fish, and
Oh, you do?
she's really cute.
What's your beta's name?
His name is Apollo.
Apollo the beta. I like.
Yes,
very
and
nice.
he's,
Very nice.
he's really cute, and yeah. Anyway, I always like fish, so that's why aquariums are actually omnipresent in my stories, and I think it's funny that you like them too.
Well, and I like how you pull these things together, and I love how it's like I like fish, so I destroy aquariums. I love these cities, so I'm going to show them destroyed later. I love how you only hurt the ones you love, including your fish and your cities. So Dean wants to know, you've got Shadow City, Behind Blue Eyes, Cyber Squad. Do you have ideas for more series, or are you going to continue to expand the series you have?
So yes, that's actually very, very exciting news. So I am planning to start 2 new series next year. Next year will be a very busy year for me. I will first bring out Behind Blue Eyes 4, which I'm starting to write in December, and then I will bring out 2 new series next year. And then finish Shadow City with the third and last book of Shadow City. So that will be the last book next year I will write. But in between, I will start 2 completely new series. And one of them will be a spin-off of Behind Blue Eyes. I want to write about those 2. You don't know them yet because you haven't read the second book.
Go ahead.
No, there are 2 new characters coming in the second book, and those are they're detectives. Mm-hmm. And it's a spin-off about them, how they're homicide detectives in Olympia City and in Old Town. So their story is very different than the cyborg story, but it's very, very cyberpunk. So they will get their own spin-off series and will go and hunt murderers in Olympia City. So that's one of the new series I'm bringing in next year. And the second one I don't tell yet because I will announce that.
Announce later. Well, it seems like you're super busy with all of these anyway, so it's not like you've got a lot of downtime on your hand with these different series. Terry's excited about that, but Derek is very sad that it's third and final. So it's Shadow City, Dark City, and then do you have a title for the third one? So Derek can be sad about that it's going to be the last one he gets for that series.
I don't know. I'm not sure yet, but probably it will be Toxic City.
Ooh, I like Toxic City. I mean, I don't want to actually live in a toxic city. You know what I mean? I just like the title. Yes. It's a good title. It's a good title. No, and I love a lot of the stylistic things you do for tying all this stuff together. You can see Anna's website is scrolling there at the bottom. If you go there, you'll see like the font for Behind Blue Eyes. You've done a really amazing job of branding, of showing like this is the stuff that even if you're reading the different books, you've got this kind of similar feel, even if we're hopping between worlds and how they're all interconnected. So I'm excited to read the new stuff, including with the detectives out of Olympus City. I can't wait to see all of that. But which of these things are going to get made into a movie first? I stopped you. You're like, I don't know.
I don't know actually. I mean, to be honest with you, with Behind Blue Eyes is my most important work. There will be 6 books in the main series, plus multiple spin-offs, mm-hmm. and then probably after those 6 books, the story will continue, but in a very, very different way. So I can't say anything about it because that would spoil the big showdown in book 6. So I would be honestly scared that they mess it up.
They will, sure.
Because there are so many examples.
Cyberpunk stuff. I mean, I don't know if have you seen Altered Carbon? Peripheral's on right now. I know you're not a huge William Gibson fan, but we're watching Peripheral right now.
Yeah, I'm watching it too. It's actually really good, I think.
We're only a couple episodes in, so no spoilers, but that's an amazing thing, and that wasn't based on one I've read. I've only read a couple of his. I was like halfway through a book one time, and then I left the book at a doctor's office and didn't care enough to go back and get it. Don't tell him that.
Yeah, exactly. That's basically my experience too.
I liked the first. I think I read Virtual Light and really liked it, and then I think I was reading Neuromancer, which is his foremost, most well-known book, and I don't know where I left it. It's okay, but Peripheral I'm really enjoying. But I do know that sometimes when work is translated, it isn't as faithful to the work. So I understand your trepidation to not be like, sure, go ahead and destroy all the ideas I had, and someone's just putting schlock out there.
Actually, those guys who make Peripheral, who also made Westworld, that's Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, I think is her name. Yeah. They're a couple. I would totally give them Behind Blue Eyes. Actually,
they get the rights. Okay,
I would 100% give them Behind Blue Eyes because I liked Westworld had its flaws, especially in the end, I think. But
I am one season behind because we don't have HBO.
Okay, I won't tell anything.
Season 3, it's good.
But what I really like is the look, the cyberpunk look, how the cities look like, and everything. And they use a lot of real, real life cities settings, and then just turn them a little bit different. And so I prefer that than cities that are completely made in a computer. So I really like what they do. Also now in the Peripheral, where you have London, and you really have to see London, but they have put those gigantic
scrubbers. I'm glad they finally explained. I'm ruining it for anybody who's watching it. Sorry, they're like these massive statues, and every time they'd show it, I'm like hitting my husband. What are those? And finally, they explain what those are for, but it just throws off your entire perception because I've been to London, and to see London with these massive statues towering over that have to be like triple the size of any other massive building around there of people, but then buildings through it. It's unlike anything else I'd ever seen, and it's
really cool.
Yeah, I agree. If they want the rights to your books, you hand them over and say, please work.
Yeah. So that would be. I would definitely give them Behind Blue Eyes, and the other books. I don't know.
Yeah, Hal is just weighing, and she loves Peripheral and love Altered Carbon and Westworld. It's like same. Yeah, these are shows we can get behind.
Yeah, but other than that, I mean, there are so many examples of really screwed up, wonderful books then screwed up into movies. It's like it's so horrible. I don't know. I think that must hurt the author so much.
Hopefully it's like hopefully they're sitting there going, the bump I got in sales for my book makes up for the fact that they completely ruined my book when they went over here with it. And I know one of my author friends recently, I won't say more than this, but he has a very well-known director taking over his book, and I'm just sitting there like this going, please do not botch this book. But he's got good actors attached to it, and I'm hoping all of it will, when it comes out fairly soon, will not botch it too much. So we will see. For like
fingers crossed. Unfortunately, they often completely rewrite it, and
I know
they want to put in their own flavor,
their own spin, and you're like, you spin it out of control. Like, what is that? But okay, so I did have one question sent in beforehand that I promised I would ask. So Josh Patrick Riley wanted to know, how do you relate to your protagonists, or how do you relate your protagonists' arc, like their character arc, to the themes within your world? And since you've got multiple worlds, I mean, we could take anybody, but I would say Nephilim, since she's like the child of your heart, and you can answer for Kai too, but about their character arc and the themes that you've got in their world, how would you answer that?
So I think with Nephilim and her character arc in the world are very strongly connected, because I mean, the world is it's a dystopia that comes in disguise of a utopia. So people think they live the perfect lives, and they have been brainwashed to believe so. And Nephilim is one of those protectors of this perfect society. And all her life, she thought that she is one of the good guys and she's doing the right thing, until she starts doubting the whole thing, and eventually doubts the whole system and rebels against it. So I think her character arc couldn't exist without this world, in a way. But in a different way, it's also a very, very classical hero's journey, right? With the person basically awakening and then deciding to go their way, even if it might kill them.
Yeah, if it costs them everything. Because if it doesn't, it's not interesting, if there's really nothing at stake. And I know that when we first meet Nephilim in Behind Blue Eyes, so not dealing with the prequels where we'll meet her even earlier, but when we're meeting her there, she's like being groomed to even take a step further, and seeing how like she could have even more power and even more authority and even more, I'm assuming, some bionic implantation and assistance, so she'd be even more strong and healthy and everything. But for her to decide, well, what is the world I really want to serve, and how should I be using my power, and having to look in the mirror and go, okay, well, what is behind these eyes, and who am I serving, and is that the kind that leaves children cowering in fear when I show up? Which is like one of it's an early scene, but it's one of the scenes that just like broke my heart, where she's like, we're here to help you. Why are you cowering?
Yeah, that's like the event that triggers the whole story, when she realizes that those children see her as a monster, and that's why she begins thinking for the first time. And of course,
which you're not supposed to do in a dystopia. Never think. Just
no.
Party line and go with it.
But you will realize when you read the further books that everything is a little bit different than it seems, and also than it seems in the first book, and the events take a very different turn than most people thought they would. And so I think once the whole 6 books are there, and people will see the whole story, the complete arc, the big arc, then a lot of things will be very, very clear, and also appear very different than they appear now. So that's the whole plan, is to twist things around very much.
I'm excited to see where you're going. Like, I don't even have to ask, are you a planner or a plotter? Because if you've got 6 books planned out ahead and all these other series, you clearly have a lot of planning going on up in there. And my brain just goes, nope, can't compute that far. So my brain goes, not worthy, cannot follow all these plots. But I'm so excited. And Anna, we are out of time. I am so glad you were able to join me today. I can't wait to keep reading the prequels and the rest in the Behind Blue Eye series, and to see the other book that's out right now before Toxic City comes out, unless you change the title, to read Dark City, because I've already read Shadow City. And nobody, don't wait for all these books to come out. You've got quite a lot of reading to do. So start wherever you want with one of the series and work your way through the ANNA MOCIKAT extended universe before
I will finish all series. I mean, I'm not one of those who just leaves a series abandoned in the middle. I will finish all of them. It just takes a little bit of time, because I work on all of them at the same time. And just another thing, so I'm a little bit crazy, because I keep everything in my head. I don't only have them multiple series running, but I have all of it, what will happen in my head.
That's amazing.
Sometimes I make notes, but I never look at them again.
But you know what? Honestly, sometimes just the act of writing it down helps remind you that, hey, there's something I need to come back to, even if you never find that note again. It's like, well, writing it down just seals it into those little neurons up here.
Yeah. Well, Allison, thank you so much for inviting me. I had a blast. It was a wonderful interview, such great questions, and I'm really, really happy that you like my books and you read them. And yeah.
Well, and I do also want to shout out, I read Behind Blue Eyes with my eyeballs, but everything else I've listened to, and Anna's got some great narrators working for her. So absolutely, if you're like, oh, I don't have time to read all these, well, you do while you're listening. So go and download them that way, or if you're an eyeball reader, do them that way. Either way, you can see Anna's her website is scrolling across the bottom, and it's in the description of the show too. So you can get everything that way and buy all of her books and review them, please, because reviewers, we need the reviews. Otherwise, people won't find the books, because the reviews tell the algorithm the book was worth reading. So thank you, Anna. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, everyone who's watching live or on the replay. If you're watching this on YouTube, even if you aren't, please like and subscribe so the Vox Vomitus channel can find more authors and people can come find the show. And we will be back next month. But before we get to next month, tomorrow on Vox Vomitus, we have Charlene Harris, aka the author of the Dead Until Dark True Blood series, and we'll be talking about her newest book in the Gunny Rose series. And I will hopefully not just be completely tongue-tied the whole time going, you're at Sookie Stackhouse, you're amazing, hi. I will try to be very professional. I have not yet ever been very professional, but I'm going to try tomorrow.
I'm sure you will be great. I'm sure you will do awesome.
I'm still like 2% under brain fog from the anesthesia. It might wear off by New Year's.
You have your implants; they will help. You know,
my implants. I won't take my implants off before then. Yeah, I'll just plug in directly. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.